Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Those of you that are in person and those of you that are on YouTube and social media outlets. I'd like to call the Board of Rapid City Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting. Here we have a roll call, please.
Troy Carr.
Here.
Jamie Clapham.
Here.
Christine Stephenson.
Here.
Deb Baker.
Here.
Kate Thomas.
Present.
Michael Berkland.
Here.
And Walt Swan.
Here. At this time, we'll call for the invocation.
Thank you. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you for each of the members of the school board. I thank you for their dedication to serve our district, the administration, the teachers, the support staff, the parents, and mostly the students of Rapid City. Lord, I thank you for your presence. May your presence be evidenced in this room. Give direction and guidance. Bless every student in the Rapid City school system and bless each of their families. Lord, bless the administrators who lead our teachers and make such crucial decisions. Give them health and strength. Give them wisdom, guidance, creativity, and courage to always do the right things. Lord, bless the principals, the assistants, and all the teachers and support staff. Give them health and strength. Let them have a positive influence in the lives of our students. Give them wisdom, strength, courage, creativity, love, and grace as they teach, lead, and encourage students. Lord, bless our school board. Give them health and strength. Give them wisdom as they make difficult decisions. Help them be led by your Spirit to know what is the best for our schools. Lord, give them strength, courage, creativity, perseverance, grace, and a spirit of cooperation to accomplish the greatest possible outcomes. Lord, it is our desire to see Rapid City schools be the best schools in South Dakota and to see South Dakota schools be the best in the nation. So Lord, help us to work together to accomplish this. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen.
May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay. I have not received any requests for persons wishing to address the school board, item 5, which means that we don't have any response to open forum, item 6, and we're moving right along. I love it. We'll make up for the other 9 hours of meeting time we've had the past 2 meetings. This time you're in the hands of Superintendent Swag.
Thank you, Bishop Carr. I don't know that that has happened since I started. I'm almost in shock. I think a shorter report tonight. Updating on the strategic plan work. Rapid City area schools will be hosting our next staff appreciation, January 21st. That will be at the Elks Theater. We are going to watch a movie as a district staff. I think we're going to start at 12 o'clock. RCEC First Staff Building today hosted a potluck. I can't tell you how amazing the food was, and nobody ate as much as they brought, so there was a lot of leftovers, but we shared amazing food and great company. On the student aspect, Marzano Special Education Services Review was kicked off last Wednesday on December 13th with a Zoom meeting with the Marzano team that will be conducting this review. We had over 40 district members in that kickoff, so we all start on the same page, and then we'll get really rolling into that in January. They have us on a pretty tight schedule and a timeline, so we hope to have some reports by the end of February to start giving you, and then more by May and June.
Superintendent Swager?
Yes.
So am I understanding there are gonna be other districts that are getting this review from Marzano also?
They are, but they're only, this team is working with just us
Okay,
and, other districts' reviews can look disparate to their needs.
yeah,
Our request was for them to look at how we are staffing special education programs across the district based on our student numbers, how we're identifying and how we are structuring our services.
okay.
So contract that we approved a few meetings ago kind of spells that out in more detail, but I can, actually, it's a great team. We can even ask them to come and do an information piece.
Well, I guess my question is, are we joining the other districts? Or
No.
Did we spearhead it and other districts are joining because we're doing it?
It is, no other districts are involved with our review.
Okay,
It is just a Rapid City Area Schools review.
okay.
I think when she said 40 districts, you heard 40 district and she said 40 district employees.
Employees.
Oh.
I heard the same thing and I just.
No.
I was wondering where these other districts were.
40 district employees, sorry, members participated in the Zoom. Us,
Okay.
Rapid City Area Schools.
All right. Carry on.
I apologize. Okay, we were not on the same page there. Students finished school last Friday at the end of the day. They will return January 2nd. On the communication pillar, Shane and Bobby met with Juicebox. They're working on starting restructuring of our website, looking at our use and our areas of our page that are most frequently accessed and really cleaning up that usage and working on the app. So we'll be reporting back on that. Bobby and I met with Studer Education to discuss the employee surveys, which will be coming out on January 29th. And that will go to all employees in the district, and it is a survey about district level services and their supervisor. So that is coming in the end of January. We continue to hold, Corey and I continue to hold bi-weekly meetings with Principal Holly Hoffman on the Canyon Lake closure process. She has done a nice job. There's a shared Google Doc that has questions entered and then we can respond to them. And that is working well and we'll continue to do that. Bobby sent out communication on the South Middle School boundary discussion timeline. As you will see that it is not included in tonight's agenda. On January 2nd, Mr. Coy Sassy will be going over the boundaries again on the 2nd as an informational item. Then it will be a study session topic on January 9th for board discussion if anything has come up. And then the vote will be scheduled for January 16th. So we are inviting concerned citizens to come to open forum on January 2nd, January 9th, and January 16th. And they can, of course, reach out to me or Bobby or Mr. Sassy or the board in the meantime to get clarification. Coy, I'm sure will report on facilities. Pillar Champion meetings are still happening. I know that Casey has met with quite a few Pillar Champions in the last couple of weeks, and we'll be asking those Pillar Champions to report back to the board in January as well. On the schools front, staff are following their negotiated calendars. They're all different. I can't believe how many different calendars we have. But whatever their negotiated calendar says, that's when they're reporting. Teachers had a floating PD day on Monday. I think those have resonated really well with our staff. I do know that some staff intentionally wanted to work on Monday without students in the building to get the work done so they didn't have to take briefcases full of papers home over the break and that they could plan and be prepared to hit the ground running on January 2nd. So no matter how our staff decided to use it, I think it's been a real benefit to our staff for that. Other work groups have various days off this week, but all groups have Monday, the 25th and the 26th off. And then Friday, the 29th and Monday, the 1st. So those are the holidays that will not be covered at all district-wide. And I know that Bobby also sent out communication about that. On the other front, I have done some traveling since our last board meeting. The day after that meeting, I traveled to Chamberlain for the superintendent gathering to follow up to Governor Noem's budget address. We spent a lot of time that day talking about finances, how that 4% impacts school districts. We also talked about a bill that is coming forward to change the junior level test to the ACT test instead of the SBAC. I know that some districts in the state have concerns about that. I've heard maybe it's a day late and a dollar short, because now we're really pushing CTE and kind of everybody finding their pathway that works for them. But the ACT test is really college bound. However, I think I personally believe the ACT test is more valued by students, and there's higher buy-in because they see that it is attached to their transcript, and that if they ever apply for a college or a junior community school or whatever, they're going to be asked for that. So I think it's kind of a good way to go. Mr. Coy may report on lunch debt, but we did have a big discussion with all the superintendents. I was kind of shocked in that discussion because, we have significant lunch debt. We've heard about that. However, there are school districts in this state with zero lunch debt, which I just found amazing. But so, they don't necessarily care if there's a bill about lunch debt because they don't have an issue. Last Thursday, I attended the LNI welcome breakfast with LNI participants. I met the board, and that was a great gathering that the monument hosts every year. This is the first year I had been invited. I was really happy to see the number of people that I knew from previous interactions when I was in my previous position, and I really felt that I was a great chance to connect. After that, I also went over to the Lakota educational conference that was being held at the Ramkota, and did a welcoming for that group of people that were here from all over the state and even in the nation. So that was a great way to spend that morning. Mr. Coy earned his MBA and graduated last Friday. He graduated, and we are incredibly proud of him. And I know that he's probably blushing right now, but that's quite an accomplishment. And he did that, of course, while he was working full-time. And I think that he probably doesn't know what to do between the hours of like 10 and midnight anymore, because that's when he was doing homework. Last Friday, I traveled to T area schools and spent the day with their superintendent, Dr. Jen Lowry. While I was there with her, we looked deeply at the state funding report. I brought some papers back to Coy, and we talked about them. We looked at strategic scorecard. They're a little bit further in the strategic planning process with Huron-Studer, so we went and spent some time looking at their scorecards. We visited Venture Elementary, and it's one of their elementary schools, and it hosts what they call the Titan Learning Room. And their elementary schools with behavior problems can refer students over to this Titan Learning Room. It is staffed by one teacher, 3 paras, and 1 counselor for just that program. And it has 17 students participating in it. T area schools has 2,420 students. We have 10,000 more students than T area schools. However, it was really nice to talk to that principal and that counselor and that teacher in that room. And what I loved the most about it is housed in a functioning elementary. So those students actually go in and out to a regular classroom and go into after the first 2 weeks of behavior work, they're assigned to a regular classroom in that building, and they go in for lessons. And then if they're having behavior issues, they can go back to the Titan Learning Room until they're regulated, and then they can go back to the classrooms. They always have a safe place to go in that building. And then once they reach a certain achievement, they are graduated out back to their home building. So it is something that I'll be talking to Dr. Strasser about moving forward. It is another thing to look at. And then I spent the last part of my day there with their data teams. And I'll be talking to the Teaching, Learning and Innovations team about how they're recording data. One of the things that I found fascinating is they can pull up a sheet from across their middle schools or their high schools, and they can see how many writing assignments their sixth graders have had so far this semester. And to be able to have that whole picture across the whole district would be something that I would strive for in the future. And just being able to see how it's working there was very eye-opening, so I appreciated that time. You will see on the board agenda today, there is a contract for Todd Christensen. He has stepped in to help us out in the Special Services Department. So if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me. The only other department that I'm reporting on tonight is federal programs. We are meeting regularly with our grant writer, Bill. We are targeting a lot of grants that they will be working on intensely, very much between now and February, some are due, and March, some are due. And there's a ton of work happening in that grant process right now. So we've expanded that team. Kelsey is working with us, Coy is working with us, and Jen Strong is joining us. And Corey, are you on that? No, probably not. Everybody's calendars are really full, but super excited. We have now scheduled bi-weekly meetings with all of us with Bill. And so there's work that we need to do, but he has also had a lot of great response from like Elevate in town to give him some local data that is required for these, like housing numbers and things like that that are required for these grants. And I appreciate all of those agencies, Visit Rapid City and Elevate, that have responded to our grant writer with information. So I'm appreciative of that. And just for everybody's information, I am leaving for a few days on Thursday. My mom had a bucket list trip and she wanted to see the Panama Canal, and she's 80 years old. And we are leaving to do that on Thursday, and I will be returning at late the day of January 2nd. So Dr. Strasser and Coy will have that board meeting. And that is my report for tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Very thorough, very informative. Board members, do you have any question on the superintendent report? All right.
Hold to Christina over here.
Oh,
Christina's in.
Ms. Stevenson.
Okay, so I had a question. No, actually, I'm gonna skip my questions, just in the interest. I wanted to say, it's very exciting about the grant writer. I appreciate that you found a firm to do that, and I love hearing that they're working with local communities. That just really made, with local entities to get data. I hope at some point, I mean, I've read a lot about different districts partnering with community organizations to, help homeless students or whatever. So I'm just very, very pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Right now, Mr. Sassy, you ready for your report? Oh,
Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you for all your support. Definitely glad to have it over, although, as my wife would tell you, I'm not good at sitting around and not having a goal. So the next goal is there is a program offered through a group called ASBO, Association of School Business Officials, called the SFO program. It's School Finance Officer. It is much less rigorous than an MBA program, but certainly is very pointed at the realm of what my job is here. And so I want to get that. It's just one test. So no big deal. It's a proctored test, but I'd really like to get that certification as well. So that's the next thing, which I'm sure my wife's going to be thrilled to hear about. So.
I'm sending her the link.
Thank you, President Carr. Just a few updates for the board tonight. I'd like to start by talking about something that we probably don't talk about enough. which is the general state of the economy in our nation and in the world. So if you pay any attention to what the Federal Reserve is doing, which you probably don't because you have lives, and last week the Fed held interest rates steady again. So this is a third consecutive time that the Fed has held interest rates steady. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in our economy. We've talked about post-COVID, some of the really confusing signs that have been happening in our economy in terms of the state of the economy and inflation and the supply and demand and really doing some things that theoretically you would not think that the economy would be doing. So I think it's encouraging that the Fed continues to hold. If you listen to their message, they weren't exactly what you would call positive. They're not saying, hey, we're out of the woods and no further action is going to be necessary. They hinted at the idea that there still could be hikes in the future. But if you listen to a lot of the experts, they think that hopefully we are on the downhill side and we'll start to see ease in interest rates over the next couple of years, which obviously for us has a massive impact on what we do here and everything from our consumable supplies all the way up to the cost of construction. Mr. Clement and I were on a call with MOA Architecture, the firm that is managing the South Middle School project. They're now seeing costs all the way up to $1,000 per square foot for new schools in the Colorado area, which is outrageous, unsustainable. So again, as we move into the future, this has a massive impact on what our district looks like in a lot of ways. So I wanted to give a really quick update there. I pay attention to those things and I wanted you to know that. So very quick legislative update. I had an opportunity to attend our Region 4 meeting. Nicole was out that day. It's a Region 4 administrators meeting, superintendent and business officials. There was the lobbyist from SASD, School Administrators of South Dakota Group. His name is Rob Monson, one of the major lobbying groups in the state for public schools. He gave an update on what he sees as critical issues moving into the legislative session. Talked at length, obviously, about the state aid situation. It was very interesting and became apparent through some of the discussion and comments that, as we've talked at length about, that sometimes the confusion around exactly what is happening with state aid extends all the way into those types of groups. He and I had a great conversation afterwards, but certainly there was some confusion in terms of what we battle with as a district, which is it is a misleading statement to say that state aid is increasing by 4%, and there are more accurate ways to make that statement. And so we talked a lot about that. I think that there is going to be opportunity to get in front of certainly the education committees and possibly other larger committees this session. Obviously, a hot button point for those conversations is the historical increases over the last decade or so in terms of target teacher compensation and what has actually happened with teacher compensation over that time. And I had a great conversation with Rob that day on that as well. And what I really tried to impress upon him is it takes a lot of context to understand what is happening. And there are thousands of factors that are going into any given district situation in terms of what they're actually able to flow through in compensation, not only to the teacher group, but to all employee groups. And it is not as simple as drawing a straight line from state aid increase or teacher compensation increase X to, okay, actual wages should increase by Y. It's much more difficult than that. And he said, well, that's great because that's exactly the message that we need to send as we move into this session. So felt great about that conversation. I have a meeting with Mr. Kyle Shanefish, who is the House of Reps, Senate I get that wrong every time, don't I?
I got it wrong too, but I was corrected
Okay,
yesterday. so-
perfect, thank you. Education Committee Chairperson, and really looking forward to that. I just so happen to have a long history with that gentleman because in my previous district, he was the lead auditor for about a decade, so know him fairly well. I just want to take some time to talk about some of the issues with him, and hopefully he can help us gain some traction in being able to reach some of the people in the committees that we need to get to try to make a difference there. So,
Coy,
yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
There are so many people who are smarter than I am.
Me as well, sir.
And I'm just 2.5 years into the education business, and I understand it. Why is there such a misunderstanding of that
Yeah.
concept that 4% that comes out of a governor's mouth
Yeah.
is not 4% in a teacher's pocket?
Yeah. It's a really great question. With total respect to everyone involved, I will be honest and say that I just don't believe that they have people around them that are giving them accurate information. And I mean that very respectfully. I truly do. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I think it's a really complex situation that unless you're living in it every single day like I do is very difficult to understand. And so if you don't have those people around you saying, no, this is what is happening, this is accurate, I think they start to operate under the idea that this is a straight line, and it is not. And the message that state aid is increasing by 4% sounds a lot better and is much simpler to say than the target teacher salary component of the state aid formula is increasing by 4% is very difficult. And so I think at times we hear the messages and we run with the messages. And unfortunately, if there isn't someone to say, no, that's not accurate, here's what's actually happening, it just doesn't, the message doesn't get passed.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Follow up to
Yes.
that. Is there any way to get data for like the state component of education funding?
Mhm.
Has that gone up by 4% a year? Or can we get the actual, this year, the legislature passed 7% increase.
Right.
We didn't get a 7% increase.
Right.
I presume many schools, I don't know, Nicole, if you talked about what other schools were getting.
Right.
And we know why, because it went to the target teacher.
Sure.
But like that data has to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What actual state spending on education
100%.
what has happened in the last 8 years?
Yeah.
It's compounded by so many different factors. One is local effort or local
Mhm.
local effort,
Mhm.
enrollment changes, so many things. It's not as simple as attendance. It's not as simple as they gave that and we didn't get it. There's,
But I would love
Yeah.
to know, like, the state dollars spent per pupil in South Dakota.
Right.
Has that gone up?
Yeah.
Or is it the same?
Yeah.
Is it commensurate with inflation? Is it more than inflation? Is it less? I mean, somebody's gotta be able to make that
Yeah.
calculation.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Department of Ed produces a report every year that they call the Statistical Digest Report. And it has really a great breakdown of information in terms of per district, average spend per pupil and general fund expenditures, capital outlay. So, trying to draw some ability to compare district to district, what that looks like. If you all recall, I often bring forward some of the information in regards to per pupil spending from Sioux Falls and some of our neighboring schools, just to get an idea of how our per pupil spending ranks up to those. But you can go to a statewide profile, which has exactly that information. And I think that's a great point, Christine, because as Nicole said, what compounds the issue oftentimes is that the idea that, the total amount of state spend on state aid increasing 4% is very different from saying that every district's state aid is going to increase 4%. And again, you know, you have 4 to 5 major variables in that formula that are all changing, that will not draw a straight line from here to here. If a district had the exact same enrollment, the exact same local effort, if nothing else changed in that formula, then yes, they would see a 4% increase from year to year. But no districts have that in any way. So it's just you know, back to President Carr's question, it's a difficult, complex situation. It's not simple. And if you don't have somebody saying that, then people run with that message. So. But we'll do what we can to try to continue to beat our drum and tell our story. Nicole mentioned, and I'm just very briefly, the student nutrition bill, as I shared with you, there was, I think, you know, some of the air taken out of the balloon around that after Representative Whitman's conversation with the governor. However, still moving forward, as far as I'm aware, she still plans to bring the bill forward. Still feels like she does have some good support. Nicole talked about the idea, and I think this has been one of the major challenges of that legislation gaining traction, which is every district is impacted by bad debt a little bit differently, and some districts maybe not at all. And so again, what we've talked about, and thank goodness that Krista Leichner is back and is able to help with some of this information. What we've talked about is trying to put that information in a context that is understandable to everyone, regardless of the scope. And here's what I mean when I say that. So Rapid City area schools, bad debt is a big number. New Underwood School District may be a very small number, but what does that number look like in comparison to the operating budget of student nutrition, for example? Because $5,000 to a New Underwood may proportionately, from a percentage standpoint, look very much like what Rapid Cities does. And so oftentimes, even in my conversations with fellow business officials, if I say, hey, is this a problem for you? And they say, no, not at all. And I say, well, can you give me the amount? And they do have an amount, but in their mind, it's not a problem because it's a smaller dollar amount than Rapid City, for example. So I think that's been one of the real challenges. And if you, what I've come to learn in this career is if it isn't a problem oftentimes for smaller districts, then it doesn't gain a lot of legislative traction. One of our challenges is we're in this interesting quasi state where Sioux Falls is significantly larger. We're significantly larger than basically everyone else. And so we need to show that information in a context that makes sense and shows how it accurately impacts all those schools. So we continue to work on that. Lastly, I wanted to mention and give a quick update on the district's audit situation. As some of you are aware, we've lagged behind a bit due to massive amount of employee turnover in the business office and some difficulty in terms of scheduling with our audit company. We've lagged behind a bit. Talked with the lead auditor last week. We are, I should add, because we have essentially 2 audits happening at the same time, fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. What the firm decided would be the best way forward was to essentially combine the field work for both of those fiscal years. So they are concurrently working on multiple fiscal years in terms of field work because they felt like that would help to shorten the cycle and obviously get us back on the cycle that we've been on for many, many years in terms of timely audits. So we're hoping that fiscal year 22 audit will be finalized in January. And then the fiscal year 23 just shortly behind that, hopefully in February or perhaps even in later January as well. So as soon as we have that done, we will of course schedule time for those folks to get in front of you all as board members and present those audits and have discussion. I think that's it for me, President Carr. If, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any, sir.
All right, Mr. Swan.
Thank you, Coy, for addressing that, and congratulations again. That was, the MBA is really, really three good letters to have behind your name.
Thank you, sir.
I do have a question though. I mean, having worked with, school districts before, are there any preliminary findings that, the firm is coming back with and saying that we have to address or?
No preliminary findings at this point. Obviously, as they're going through field work, we're always having discussions with them around what they're seeing, what they're finding. We've got no indications of any, I mean, we'll always have findings, but certainly not any findings that had any type of materiality in terms of cash management or any of those types of things. So no indication of those yet. Well,
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you, Coy.
All right, anybody else? All right, up next is my turn. About a month and a half ago, I went to the ASBSD State Board of Directors. I guess it's kind of hard to explain. It's two separate meetings. The Board of Directors for the ASBSD and then the Delegate Assembly that votes on the resolutions for the upcoming year of the ASB SD. So I was fortunate to do that. And so I'll have a short presentation. All right. Are you moving the slides for me? Thank you so very much. You're so kind. All right. Yeah. All right, next slide, please. All right, the Associated School Boards of South Dakota, and I'm not, this information is not coming from me as an expert. It's coming from somebody who's learning it. So just bear with me on that. Associated School Boards of South Dakota is a nonprofit corporation formed in July 1977 under the IRS Code Section 501c3. Next slide, please. ASBSD as a membership organization currently has 148 public school district members out of 148 public school districts. In addition, they have multiple affiliate members from non-public schools, counties, and co-ops. ASB is governed by a school board members elected by region and size of the public school district. And so, as I said, we have not had a representation on the ASBSD school board for a while, and the board voted maybe a couple of months ago for me to be selected. And I thought that was important that I be the first one so that I would obviously know what was going on and then be able to report back. So maybe in the future, we'll have other members of the school board sit in those roles so we can kind of switch it around. The regions consist of Central, Northeast, Southeast, and Western. So as you can see here are the 4 regions. Obviously, we're in the Western region. You have the Central region, the Northeast region, and the Southeast region. Each region is divided by enrollment size, and so you have 4 representatives from each region representing the enrollment size. So for the Central region, for example, you have 265 and under, and that's the number of the students in the district, right? So it's quite interesting. One of the fascinating things is when I'm among the other districts that some districts only have 700 students. Well, we have one school that has almost 7. So it's quite interesting when you're around other districts, the size. I mean, we're kind of the big elephant in the room when we are among other districts. So you see those different size classifications. If you go to the Southeast region, you will see 10,000 and over, and there's only 2 regions, obviously, that have school districts of over 10,000. Obviously, that's Sioux Falls and Rapid City. And you see way down at the bottom, my little name down there, Troy Carr. So there it is. Some of the things that the association does is they recognize 80% of public school boards with an all award since 2016. They've trained more than 1,400 school board members and administrations in the past year. They've offered legal, protective trust, teacher placement, admin searches, financial, meeting services, and more. They've provided more than 400 sample policies, exhibits, and regulations for free to members in 12 unique areas. They've tracked over 85 pieces of legislation during the 2022 session. They advocated on behalf of all of our members to get schools a 6% increase in state aid, and they defeated 30 out of 32 bills that were opposed by members during the 2022 session. Some of the issues that I gleaned out of that conference was all districts are having issues with truancy. And one of the things that our district has talked about is instead of parents or families dealing with the truancy issue, they will just apply for homeschool. And once that happens, then in many cases, in some cases, those families and those students are lost. And so not only is that an issue for Rapid City, but for other districts around the state. One of the other big things is that it's going to be important for public school districts to defend their academic proficiency. Obviously, there's a push in the state for school vouchers, which would obviously hurt the numbers of the public school districts. And so they're admonishing school districts to be able to defend your proficiency and basically say, why should you be a educational choice for students? And again, when you look at our school report, we have some work to do. And I think one of the things that they also talked about is that they may not require, but ask districts to have a report or to be able to, in some type of way, to defend their academic proficiency. They talked about the Educators Rising program, which is a program that on the school level tries to engage students in going into the teaching profession. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles for school districts, obviously, in the nation, is just finding teachers. And teachers aren't coming out of that education pipeline, which is, again, dangerous and kind of frightful as I sit in this position. And so that program is a plan to get kids wanting to go into the teacher's profession. And I talked to Superintendent Swaggart, and it was excited and surprised to know that we do have a program at, let me guess, Central Knott Stevens. All right, I got that right. All right, so we are operating that program, and so that's awesome. This year, the ASBSD legislative resolutions, for the public, if you want to go to that, you can go to the asbsd.org website, and you can see the resolutions that we voted on this year. For the board, I'm here to report that we only had one resolution that you all wanted me to vote no on. I did vote no on that, but I might have been the only no vote. It's interesting how you vote too. You have a blue card, and if it's yay, you raise the blue card up, which I thought was unique. And I guess it's kind of just, they don't count each card, but it's just mostly a kind of unanimous majority that. So that was the delegate assembly the next day after after our school board of directors meeting. So just all the resolutions that we saw and we had talked about, all of them passed. So if it was voted to be removed, it was moved, added, it was added, modified, it was modified. So everything pretty much is as you read during those sheets that were handed out. One of the things, and the last thing that I will say under Rapid City Area Schools' role and importance, because we are the second largest school district in the state, it was recognized that we hadn't had any participation. I mean, when I was there, they mentioned how we were missed and how they appreciated us being there. I mean, when you have a school district of our size, we're like a big brother. I mean, smaller rural schools look to what is Rapid City doing, what is Sioux Falls doing, which goes, this wasn't part of my presentation, but again, which goes into when we talk about bond, when we talk about CTE, that in some of those areas, our school district is lagging in the state in some of those areas. And I don't know if it's well, I do know it's a pride thing. For me personally, that I would like to be a leader in some of these areas instead of lagging behind and following. So that ain't coming from the board. That's just kind of my opinion because again, the state looks up to us. They look to see what is Rapid City doing. And I would like to be in front of the line and not in back of the line. So, all right, that's my report. Any questions or comments? All right. The next thing is to talk about communication. Before I say that, I just wanted to inform and just maybe remind board members that if there's a subject or a topic that you would really like to talk about, would like to address, that you all are able to put items on the agenda. And so that's what I did with this. I have these soapboxes, and so communication is my newest soapbox. So I thought we would have a conversation about it. And the reason why I also, just for the community's sake, put it in this type of format, because the 7 of us board members can't have a discussion of more than 3 of us. And so it makes it awkward having, sub conversations with sub people. And so it's just easier to have a conversation in this setting about a particular subject. So I want to talk about communication probably briefly, maybe the next 10, 15 minutes, and get board members' input on how you all feel that we're doing or not doing. And basically, it's in response to some community members feeling that we're not communicating or not communicating well, or that we're not transparent. And so I kind of want to propose some questions, make some statement, get some inputs from you all. Before I do that, we had last board member, we had a community member, a father, who came and spoke quite eloquently about this issue. And so I will read this as an opening statement, and then I will entertain comments about the subject of communication, and more specifically from the board to the community, or from the district to the community. The district itself has its own intercommunication functions, and so that's not necessarily where I want this discussion to go. This is more, how is the Board of Education communicating with the public? Are we doing a good job, bad job, indifferent, or whatever? I'm going to read in 2 paragraphs or 2 main points in the middle of this person's conversation. If you want to hear the full context, you can go online and listen to it from the December 12th meeting. The excuse of I can't be there because I'm taking my child to gymnastics or basketball, I could listen to it live. I can listen a week later in the shower or mowing the lawn. I could be informed whether I have time or not. And I bring that up in context of you guys talking about improving communication. And I greatly appreciate that. But I think it's also beholden to me to be informed. I attended last spring quite regularly, and I learned quite a bit. So when I did get news, it wasn't that surprising or as anxiety producing or whatever, because I had more detail, and that's on me. And what I'm getting at finally is to thank you for trying to communicate, and please continue to try, even though these are people who, like me, out of laziness, aren't always here. My point is, thank you so much for doing that work and for being willing to do that work. Please continue to serve and act on behalf of our society and our community, because whether a tribe, a society, or whatever you want to call it, they don't survive unless there are people willing to do that work. And like I said, I'm selfish. I tend to think of myself and my family, and you guys are acting on behalf of something bigger than that, and I'm very thankful for it. And I know there's a lot of people who are. Even though you do not always hear that part, please understand that it's true, and please keep doing it. And obviously, after this person spoke, there were several. I think he got the first person of the board meeting award because it was so true and so thankful of the things that he said. So that's the conversation that I would like to have, and I'll entertain any comments from any board members or from the admin about communication. Chair recognizes Mrs. Clapham.
President Carr, thank you for opening up the conversation, and I know this, like, compared to normal typical board meetings, is a little maybe non-traditional, but I think that's good. And just a few things to kind of piggyback on. One, I think it's very important to re-emphasize that how, you know, I think the way I sometimes put it is how we can't set up the nuclear bomb unless all 7 of us are present to set off the nuclear bomb. And so really people understanding, like, you know, Michael, Kate and I might have a conversation, but that doesn't mean the other 4 of you know what happened in that conversation. And it's not saying that we're attempting to circumvent, it's just that that's what happens. Like, we're on committees, we're in different spaces when 2 or 3 of us are present. And so we can't have full, robust conversations unless we are in this room and it is a public meeting. So I think sometimes, and I've heard people say, well, this board member said, it may be in fact true that one board member may at some time have a piece of information that the other one doesn't. It doesn't mean that it was intentionally unclear or non-transparent. It means that in some space and some time, in a committee meeting where they were supposed to be, with a principal where they were supposed to be, wherever, they got that information and we didn't. So I think that it's very important to know that, like, there's no intention to be secretive. There's no intention to be, you know, creating factions. It's just the way public boards function, and to be patient and understand that, and that we're all trying our best in that. Another thing that came up, a couple people spoke about having access to our administrators in the building. And we had some discussion about this in leadership, and there's a couple of barriers there. One, I would say, because we share the building with YMCA, and I think most people who are watching this are probably parents, you understand that there's high security because there are tiny children that we have to protect. And the floors where our building, our offices are, they enter, so it's not like up to 4 floors one way and one to, so we have to function with that. And so to have the expectation to just be able to walk in the building isn't really reasonable for the safety of those children. So I would say, however, that I believe that our administration, our staff is very, very open to send them an email, say, can we meet at 2 o'clock? I can tell you, before I was in this chair, that multiple people in this room who have retired since then are absolutely willing to set up appointments, meet. And so I would encourage the public, all of our emails are very easy to find. So I would really encourage the public to do that, because we do have that barrier of the safety and security issue in this building. And the other thing I would really, if people have advice or suggestions, I think we know statistically in Rapid City that we have a large retired community. We know that 50% of households in Rapid City do not have a child in Rapid City schools, or have a child that is school age, in fact. So I think one of our great barriers when we look at communication, I think of QR codes and email links, and however, for a large part of the community that we're trying to reach, that doesn't work. So then we have to figure out, and I would love to, like, it would be fiscally responsible to be sending mail every day or every week. So I think if the community has ideas and suggestions on how we reach that part of the community, because I think we want to, but it's a big challenge because it's just a very different, it's a different demographic than our parents. And so I think that if we have ideas for that, we would be wide open to it, but that is one of our big challenges or barriers when we talk about the greater community outside of parents and guardians that are attached to the district. So that's my 2 cents on your soapbox.
Well, thank you, thank you very much. Superintendent Swaggart.
Thank you, Bishop Carr. I wanted to piggyback off of something that Ms. Clapham said that I'm not sure is always understood. There is a all board email that is on the board page, and you can click it and you can email all of the board. I also get it. Shirley also gets it. However, the board cannot reply all. Because by replying all, that becomes a board session. So most likely, one board member or myself will respond, and we will respond just to the email sender, because we also can't respond all. The first email that is sent can be to all board members, the first one. Every email after that cannot be sent to more than 3 board members, or it becomes a meeting. The same is also true of text messages. So a first message can be sent to multiple, more than 4 board members. But after that, they cannot reply all. They get the information, like I may text the board that, we had an event in the school district and I want them to be aware of it. But if they have additional questions, they have to reach out independently to me via text. They cannot reply all. And I'm not sure that that has always been a known thing, so I wanted to take that into detail. If you're emailing to the board or multiple board members, they will not reply all. And if you're texting or reaching out, the same thing. And it's not because they're trying to keep some board members out of the loop. It is because that is the rule. So I just wanted to make sure that we said that clearly tonight.
you.
Bishop Carr, thank
That
you.
was very good. Thank you. Mr. Berkland.
So just kind of going off a lot of those same sort of ideas. I do think that we're trying our best and that we are learning as we go here. There is responsibility on both sides of the community and of us to communicate things. I know one thing, well, I've heard, because we can't all talk to each other, but with the contentious items, having some more length of time with those, and I think that would help a lot too, because there is gonna be a first time you hear about it. That's one thing I've heard from a few people is like, this is the first time hearing about it. Yes, there will be a first time you hear about it. So we're hoping that the first time you hear about it is not when we're voting on it, which kind of leads me into the next thing. Maybe one thing that we could include in our information out there is the items for board information are just that, because we cannot all discuss it at the same time. And I mentioned that a little bit last meeting, but maybe there's something when we send out the emails to families and stuff that we add in there, like this is an item for board information, action will not be taken until whatever. And then kind of on the other side of that, the YouTube videos are all posted, but I'm not going through all 3 hours that we did last time. So I don't know if it's possible, and I don't want to put a job on anyone, but just throwing out the idea out there of like some timestamps with the YouTube video afterwards of like at 1 hour, they started talking about this, at an hour and a half, they started talking about this. I don't know if that's doable or possible, but just an idea out there.
Cause it can
Okay,
follow the
perfect.
agenda, right? So
Right.
the time that this item, yeah,
Right, so they don't have to search through
that
it all.
is, that is good.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Mrs. Stephenson.
I'm gonna ask a rhetorical question that I hope isn't too sassy. I wonder how many of us have been to a city council meeting in the last year. What they do impacts us on a daily basis. We are members of this community. We purport to be paying attention, but I haven't gone to a city council meeting. I've gone to mayoral debates. I've gone to, but I think it's asking a lot of the Rapid City community to say, if you want to know what the board is doing, watch a YouTube video. I just think it's too much. I think it's too much. I think half of our students live in poverty. I think a lot of them have single parents who are working multiple jobs. I think a lot of them live with grandparents who are taking care of a lot of kids. I think that a lot of our senior population goes to sleep by the time our board meetings end. I don't know. I think we're asking a lot to say, come to the meetings and watch. I think that we need to own the responsibility that we have since we can't rely on media anymore the way that we used to. I think we have to own that that if we want to communicate with the community, we have to be very intentional about it. And we are gonna have to think of new ways of doing it. We can't just sit up here and talk. As you've said, President Carr, we can't assume that a decision we make here, it's done and then it's communicated. It doesn't work that way, you know, we make decisions and then you know, 6 months later, people say, well, this is the first I've heard of it. And we say, well, we voted on it. It was an official board action 6 months ago. I just think it's more, I don't know the exact solution, but I don't believe that saying this is on the people of Rapid City to come to these meetings or to watch them on their free time. I just don't think it's a realistic solution to improve our communication.
You know, here's what I would say to that, though. I don't go to the city council meetings, but I also then don't complain about what they do or don't do, right? So to me, I don't have a right to complain if I'm not going to be involved and go and participate and hear and educate myself, then I can't also then, well, you guys, you know, got a new water drinking plant. I mean, you can't have it both ways. And so that's kind of what the point of this letter is, that there has to be some buy-in for those individuals who want to know about the school board, that you have to also put in some skin in the game with your time, with your effort, especially if we're doing our best to put the information out there and you're not, like this guy said, he was just lazy. He just wants it spoon-fed to him. So that's the other side of that.
I guess I just wouldn't call that lazy when you're busy raising a family. Not spending an hour and a half of your weekend on your own watching a school board meeting isn't necessarily lazy. I could argue that spending time with my daughters on a hike is a better use. I'm not lazy. I'm parenting, you know, and I need to parent. And I just feel like asking the public to watch an hour and a half meeting every week or every other week it's just a lot.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Thomas.
I would respectfully disagree, using Jamie's point that we can't have any decisions or even discussions like information items where we can all discuss it and tell the public how we feel and what's coming down the pipeline unless we're at this meeting. So it's almost like kind of a no-win if they don't put skin in the game. And yes, they have children. They're making sure that is a priority, which is a good thing. But if your other priority is to find out what the school board is doing, where else are you going to find out what we're all making decisions on or what we're talking about to make a decision on? My other couple of points would be that, to your point of the public emailing all of us, I would still encourage them to email all of us at one time, just not expect an all reply. Sometimes us board members have come in one-on-one conversations. Hey, did you get that email from somebody so-and-so? I noticed they only sent it to me, but maybe they sent it separately to everybody. Or somebody gets to respond to it because they were mailed separately, but then we don't hear about what the problem or the public is saying. So I would hate for the public to not be discouraged or to be discouraged in emailing all of us at the same time. And then someone said earlier, I won't say who, but this is a really good point. Oftentimes we can say, okay, we will listen. We'll put a vote off. Come to the board meetings. We're going to hear you out. See if you have any ideas about whatever it is. Or we're having these community listening sessions. There are people that oftentimes say, well, I spoke, you listened to me, but now you're voting the opposite of what I thought you would do now that you've listened to me. So you really haven't heard me. You haven't listened to me. We need to be aware that no matter how many listening sessions we have, even if we come up with the opposite of what one or two people that really wanted something to happen and it didn't happen, now we're accused of not listening, and yet we put it all out there. So just also keep that in mind.
Was that? Okay. All right, Ms. Baker.
Well, since I've been on this board, I think we have done a great deal to improve our communication. I know when we were looking at hiring her, one of the first things that I noticed about her is her ability to communicate. Right before she was even, I think we just had hired her, she met with citizens in Rapid and discussed stuff with them and I mean, a number of people that she met with during the week. So I think we have, it was one of the pillars that the steering committee worked very hard on. So I think that is something we are working really hard on, but we can't make people want to hear this stuff. If they don't want to hear it, then they're not going to hear it. I do disagree with you. It's not our job to force people to, if they don't want to hear this stuff, they're not going to hear it. If they don't want to spend the time to see what we're doing, they're not going to do it unless it affects them. Generally, if something's not going their way, then they're going to want to know what's going on. But we can't babysit people all the time. I mean, these are their kids. It's their responsibility to see what this board is doing. It's like our elections. I mean, how many people show up to a school board election? Not many. So, I mean, we can only do what we can do. And I think that we have done an incredible job trying to increase our communication skills. I think Bobby does an excellent job on getting this stuff out as soon as she can. So I think that, I mean, this is the public's responsibility too, and I get it. We don't go to the city council meetings, but that doesn't make me, wrong because I didn't go. I mean, we don't have, everybody's got just so much time in a day. So it's up to the parents to find out what's going on with this school board, I think.
All right, Mr. Swan.
Thank you, President Carr. It's really great that we're communicating. Just listening to what everybody has to say is interesting, I wanted to kind of talk to Christine's point about the new ways to communicate. Sometimes the new ways to communicate, we sometimes have to go old school. We have to talk about newspapers. We have to talk about we have to talk about attending events. We have to talk about showing up at the city council because that's where people show up that usually have a beef against something. And so, you just like talking about it, these events that we talk about, I don't know how many parents I've called 2 bingos and went to a Wachipi. I don't know how many parents I talked to, and they all talked about each and every one of us. They pay attention. It's just they're not voicing a lot of things. But it's really cool to see a board member at a meeting. The PAC members, I had a chance to go to the Indian Ed conference, and I sat with a parent and we laughed the entire way. She was funny. She was articulate. I would have never have guessed that, she's educated. And I was like, wow, this is really, really a nice change of pace. Sometimes it is that one-on-one. Sometimes it is just having that conversation, and word spreads, if they don't like you, boy, it spreads fast. But if they like you, it spreads twice as fast. It really does. And that's, I think that's what I wanted to talk about was that when somebody has a problem, nobody has a problem with just stopping by my shop. I know that's not something that's afforded to all of you, having different jobs, but they come in. And the first thing we have the conversation, a lot of times I'm just one of those guys, you got to come in. And when we talk, hey, I'll listen, but you got to have a plan for me. You got to be solution based, because if we're not solution based when we go out to these meetings, then all we are going to hear is the negative. If we ask the public to come with us with solutions, then I think it's going to be a lot easier conversation, because one-on-one, man, attending these events, although I might have gotten COVID from one of these events, but it feels good to just sit, shake hands, talk, listen, and you learn so much about our district. Even walking on a campaign trail, I walked and I talked for such a long time, heard so much about this board, heard so much about this. You're taking on a tough job. when you're working with people who know what they're doing, when you're working with people who know how to communicate, this isn't a bad job. It's not a bad thing to do, to be in service to your community. But we have this opportunity to attend this. And, you know, I know Bishop Carr showed up at the powwow. People would know me about it, you know, already. I know, you know, I hear about these things. They even talk about Christine. Hey, who's the other board member? What area is she from? You know, and they want to know. They want to know. And, you know, how is she? Oh, she's a nice lady. You should get to talking to her. You should come over. Oh, yeah, I'll stop over and have a conversation. But we don't do that anymore. Rapid City used to be really good at that. We used to have the North Rapids Civic Association. I think we still have the West Boulevard. We used to be represented by this where we could all go talk. So I'm getting wordy. Thank you though, President Carr.
All right, Mr. Burkle.
Thank you. I'm going a second time, I guess.
That's fine.
But hearing everything here, I kind of agree with a lot. I definitely agree that it is not reasonable to expect a parent to watch 3 hours, or a teacher for that matter. I was a very involved teacher when I was a teacher, but I don't have kids and I don't have stuff to worry about like that. So I feel like our duty is to remove barriers as much as possible. Like the timestamps, or like sending out a short summary and say, hey, if you want to hear the long conversation, go watch the video then. Because obviously you can't put all 3 hours that we had into it. We're not gonna ask anyone to type that up, but even just like an update afterwards of like, here's what happened. But my other kind of issue with that is I feel like I'm saying, like, here's some list of things for Shirley and Bobby to do. Part of the issue with communication, I feel like, is exactly like who does it, because there is always, like, if I send something out, I can't really send something out because that doesn't speak for the board. And so that's just another thing I wanted to throw out there to the community as we work through what do we do with communication. Is it's hard to communicate because the only way we can communicate is here. But I agree with Christine that I'm not watching this if I'm a parent. I'm going to go on a hike with my daughter. And so I'm just trying to think of ways that we can make it more accessible to parents who do want to, because I also agree with you guys that we're not going to get every single parent and every single community member. That is unreasonable. But how can we make it easy for the ones who do want to be involved?
All right, Ms. Clapham.
Very well said, Mr. Brooklyn. I think the idea of breaking down barriers is really important. And just really briefly, as Walt spoke, it came to me and thinking about ways, because I agree, like when I get invitations, and obviously we can't all go to all the things, but I love those. I love getting those invitations and Christmas programs. And so one thought, and I'm really just saying this so it'll get written down, or we'll remember it.
Yeah.
But just saying, for example, like, could we, we have the city PTA, PTAs across town could invite any board member to come at any time. I don't know that that's like on the PTA's radar, but it would be a reason why. I mean, we have at least 10 functioning active PTAs that are in different corners of town. So those like parent and community groups, if we can get out to, yes, invite one of us, 3 of us. I mean, if we have a quorum, notice it could be more than 3 of us, but that might be a way that, and I think they said it breaks down the barrier of thinking like this kind of scary board member thing. It's just like, it's just a person who's hanging out that you could talk to. So that might be an avenue.
And just to piggyback on that, what I do know of this board, if you invite, as Walt said, as Ms. Clapham said, if you invite us to speak at your gathering, we love to do that, to have a more one-on-one, intimate type of situation. I talk for a living, so any chance I get to talk, I'm about that. So yeah, just invite us. And I don't know if that's ever been communicated, that the board is open to join meetings and groups and whatever it is to come and ask questions. So, all right, Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, thanks, Walt. I think what you said was really important, and Jamie then reiterated it. I think maybe that's what I was getting at. Like, we can't count on people watching, but we can get out in the community. We can say yes to those invites that come. I need to say yes to more of those. And then one thing I thought is, we go to like the PAC meeting, or we went to the All City PTA, and just when we arrive, just asking for a minute to say, here's what the board is, this is what we've been doing, this is what we've passed this month, or this, asking to get on those agendas, not officially, but just to say, can I just tell you what's going on so that you're in the loop, I think is also being more active in those meetings. That's what I'll try to do. I'm saying that so it's on the record.
All right. All right, Mrs. Thomas.
I didn't know there was a all-city PTA.
I didn't
It's
either.
kind of dormant for a while,
Oh,
but it sort of.
did we get emailed to go to it?
There was an email, because
I
they only
did.
have meetings like every 2 or 3 months.
Okay, it must have gotten buried. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, I'll try to be at the next one. Hopefully that is sent out. Yeah, that would be great if they could invite us to either events that they do, not just the bingo, 'cause that's clearly a very popular thing. And then I think Bobby does put out a board brief. But oftentimes I don't go into it because I was there, so I don't read it to see if the major things were hit, but maybe we could follow up and make sure if there was anything else we wanted her to mention. But I think that in conjunction with that, maybe a really good idea would be that timestamp and a link to it at that point when she puts out that board brief. Or if the board brief is really important to get out really quickly, can say more to follow with a link, et cetera, with this timestamps. But that's an excellent idea. I think that's definitely getting rid of a barrier, because then there's some people that, will contact me saying the same thing. When did they talk about your meeting? I went to it. It looked like it was 4 hours long. What time did you actually talk about that
Yeah.
one thing? It's important to me, so, yeah, thank you.
Superintendent Swagger.
So just one, I think we're all smarter together. I've always believed that, but to go off of what Michael said, Bobby does do a board brief, so we could attach that on that same column. So here's the agenda, here's the minutes and video, here's the board brief. So if you don't want to spend the hour and a half, yeah, here's the board brief that you can go look at, but all on that same page. She is sending them out, they are somewhere, but I think that's what we're learning is we're not streamlining where things are located, so just thought of that tonight. I think we'll add that.
It would be really hard for me to timestamp in the minutes. I would gladly do that, but the timestamping the board brief would be excellent.
All right. Well, thank everyone for, these are the conversations that I wish the board could have more often but we have to work with what we have. And I'd just like to say that, as Mrs. Baker said, communication is one of the 5 pillars of our strategic plan. And we have on the pillar champions for communication, and that's Shane and Bobby. And when I told Superintendent Swigert that I wanted to talk about communication, I went directly to Bobby and told her that this conversation has nothing to do with her job performance. I think she's doing a wonderful job. I think Superintendent Swigert did a wonderful job hiring her. And so this speaks because she works hard in trying to communicate with the community. So Bobby, can you just say hi?
Yes, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, board. Thank you, Bishop Carr, for your kind words. I really appreciate that. I just also, if I can just add a couple things quickly. So there are board briefs going out after every single board meeting. I do pick and choose myself what is on those board briefs that I think the community would want to hear and see. I'm always open to whatever you guys want on there. I can make them longer. I can do whatever you guys want to be communicated out. I do love the idea of adding timestamps as well, so that way people can easily toggle through our YouTube video and see and listen to the conversations that are being had. And I am always open to any new ways of communication because I know that it is hard to communicate with everyone. So right now, what we do for communication, we use School Messenger, we use social media, the website news section. I send out regular press releases on things that are happening with the board or things that are approved by the board to help get media coverage for that. But one thing I wanted to touch on is School Messenger, because I've realized that this is probably our main way of communicating with the district and parents. And we have found that some parents aren't receiving our emails, especially with the boundary things that are being communicated right now. I have found some parents are getting text messages that they need to check their email, but they don't have the email. So if a parent or guardian unsubscribes from our email ever or reports our emails as spam, they are permanently blocked from, well, not permanently, they are blocked from the emails from there forward unless they contact their school to be reallocated to those emails. And also the same with our phone numbers. So if you get annoyed by my morning snow day calls and decide to block the phone number, you then have to reach back out to the school so we can get your phone number re-put into School Messenger so you receive those notifications. And then also with something that you guys are approved one of the past meetings with the the revamp to our juice box contract, we will be having an RCAS app coming out this summer. So that way it is easier for the community to access our website and important things happening on a mobile device. So, and that will also allow us to send push notifications to anyone that has the app. So if a board brief is posted in the news section, I can push out a notification and say, check here for the board brief for this week. And then also we are going to be working with Juicebox to get some newsletter templates. And then also adding a section for community members to put in their email to receive those weekly, monthly newsletters.
That's awesome. And so that just speaks to the effort of this district and our how serious we take wanting to communicate with the district. So thank you, Bobby. Shane is also on, but you due to time, Shane, you can, unless you had something else profound to say.
No, Bobby covered everything, so we're good.
All right. Thank you all for serving on this, being pillar champions for our communication. The chair will recognize Mr. Berkland.
Thank you. Listening to Bobby, thank you for that, Bobby. One more quick suggestion. I know that many schools have their own like app or they got the class dojos and the stuff. I wonder if we could ask our schools to send out, since we don't have their emails, if we could ask them to send on that thing, whatever thing they use. Hey, a reminder, double check, is your email in Skyward, is your phone number in Skyward, that sort of thing.
It's not a Skyward
To
issue.
access those.
Yeah, it's not a Skyward issue. They have actually sent them spam
Okay,
or blocked us.
okay.
And if they're not getting one or the other, it's probably because of that, and they just need to be re-added.
Right.
So they're in Skyward, but we need to re-add them to School Messenger. Although we do often have the wrong phone number. And the wrong email.
Right.
So if you have changed your email or your phone number, or
You're not
your
on the
child
mic, but-
has gone in and changed your email or your phone number because they don't want you to know that they were absent,
Oh, man.
unexcused. I have known that to happen. We have very smart
Yes.
children, so sometimes it's good to get into Skyward and just make sure everything's right.
Bobby, did I hear you say that that the district is gonna have its own app?
Yes, yep,
Yes.
that is correct. Juicebox, Shane and I are working with them. We just met with them last week. And it should be hopefully out this summer.
Yeah. And that is our effort then to reach non-children households, because anybody can get the app and be informed. That's wonderful and exciting. Did I see a hand that? Okay, all right, so I got it. All right, moving on. Thank you again, everyone, for participating in this topic. Seeing no conflicts, I'll entertain a motion for the reading of policies and procedures.
Second.
All right, any discussion on Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta? Mr. Berkland.
Yeah, I just had one quick thing. I know before I was on the board, whenever something got deleted, it always freaked me out. So I just wanted to say real quick why these are getting deleted, and it's just because they're kind of moved into the other one. So if you look at A and B, those kind of took on C and D.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the first reading of these policies and procedures signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the proposed consent agenda.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all right, this might be policy violation, but too bad. Does anybody want an item pulled?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. I should have asked that before getting the motion and the second. So,
E is an echo, please.
all right,
I'll take my second.
thank you. Thank you for helping.
Retract.
All right.
No,
No,
you
we
leave
can,
the
yeah,
first.
we
You
can,
leave the first.
we can leave the motion. It hasn't been seconded. So so far we want echo.
Yes, please.
All right, anybody else, Mr. Berkland?
Yeah, you,
Uniform,
thank you. And maybe that's a holiday break goal.
all
Yeah.
right, any,
I like that.
anybody else? Okay, I'll entertain a second except for echo and uniform.
Second.
All right, all in favor of accepting the approval of proposed consent agenda except for echo and uniform signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right, I'll entertain a motion for echo.
So moved.
Discussion.
So literally, this is more just for public information. I know a lot of times, one of the big things, people see dollar amounts and dollar signs and they get very anxious about that. And one of the things that wasn't written on here is that we are approving this. This is the level of care the student needs, but the district will be reimbursed by Medicaid over 50% of this price that we're paying now. We just have to pay it now because we need it now. But that we will be reimbursed on the back end. So I just think the public should know that like this price tag isn't gonna actually be what it's gonna cost the district. It will be significantly lower than what is seen right here, so. That was all.
Any other discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor of accepting echo signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. I'll entertain a motion for item uniform. All right, it's been first and seconded. Who?
It was me. I just need to recuse myself again.
Okay, all right,
On there again.
all right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting uniform signify.
Yes, do a roll call.
Troy,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Michael recuse, and Walt.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0-1.
All right, and the way they go, item number 13, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, items for board information, any committee reports? Okay, Mr. Berkland?
Thank you. I had it pulled up because it's been a while, but where there was an instructional council meeting that Ms. Thomas and I attended. And just going through the agenda real quick for you all, there was a short presentation on secondary social studies. They're looking at a new curriculum, kind of like we just did with the elementary math. They're just starting the process of that. So that'll be quite a ways down the road, but they kind of gave us a kickoff presentation. And then the instructional council approved 3 courses, AP Physics C, Employability, and Culinary Arts 2. So those are some great courses for kind of all sorts of different students, AP students, and students who just like to cook. So lots and lots of great stuff to really reach a whole lot of different kids there. That was really great to see that. And then the last thing that we did, which we just approved in item A, was the new school guidebooks.
What was the AP class? Sorry, culinary arts two.
AP Physics C,
Physics.
which is, I should know how it falls in there too. I'm physics certified.
It's
It's
more,
like,
less math, I don't know, more.
it's calculus based.
Yeah,
It's calculus based. That's the difference. And it's just the first half of the calculus based one. Is that?
Yeah.
That right? So it's the first half of the calculus based version, which hasn't existed really because there weren't before a lot of kids that had it because you had to be taking calculus. And back in my day, I would have rather taken that one, but they didn't allow us to take it unless we had finished calculus. So that was part of why we hadn't offered it before. But now I think Dr. Smith and the team have worked out a way to make it concurrent with calculus.
All right, Mrs. Clapham. Oh.
Yes. Oh, I just had the really quick, the outreach committee, so we met again prior to the last evening, because we bumped all this, didn't, because we were so tired. But the
Oh, that's
outreach
right.
committee, there has been a Zoom and in-person to discuss facilities listening sessions. We are learning a great deal about what the community wants, how they feel about communication, which has led to some of these discussions, which I think is good. And we do have 2 Zooms and 2 in-person ones to go. And those will be in January and February, discussing student achievement and staff recruitment and retention. And Bobby is doing a great job getting information out on those. So, and each one we're trying to really get throughout the community. So they'll be in different locations. Sorry, so sorry. So they will be in different locations than the first one. So we really encourage the public. I think the Zoom one is a really great access point, just because you can pop on and off. You don't have to be there for the entire 2 hours if we're on for 2 hours. So our parents that, you know, cooking dinner, pop on the Zoom, ask a question and pop in and out. So we hope for that to be a way to break down those barriers and allow a little more accessibility. So those are coming in the next couple months.
Do we have the dates of the next 2?
We do.
Okay, I'll get them from you. Okay. All right, Ms. Thomas.
I would say brief, we had finance committee, but Coy's pretty much said everything. So policy, what you see is on what we've already done and what's coming. So that's pretty much it, except for the instructional council I was going to report on as well. But you did that, except that the culinary arts is a fantastic thing, but it shows the need for a CTE building. These kids could, if we had access to industrial equipment, room, could go on to different state contests, restaurant style, like maybe not Gordon Ramsay style, but something similar, which is a great competitive form to get into this industry. And they are partnering more and more with the restaurants in town with what they can do. It's hard to get kids into restaurants, especially during busy times, but this class is the access for that. But it just shows the great need for CTE building. That's it.
All right, Ms. Stephenson.
Thank you. And just to say, thank you to the policy committee. It really does seem like you've put a lot of hard work into policies this fall since I've joined the board. And as I read them, I'm like, boy, this was a lot of thought went into these. So I appreciate that. I went to the PAC meeting this December. It was December 13th. It was hosted at Central. You know, the new business, they had a presentation from the Johnson O'Malley program, which is funding from the BIA. I've since learned the Johnson O'Malley program was funded by an act in 1934, and it gets money through the BIA to Native students in all sorts of schools. And in Rapid City, it hasn't been as active. It's been active in Western South Dakota, but my understanding was maybe not as active in Rapid City because the Johnson O'Malley people said they felt like some barriers had been put, like they weren't getting responses from schools as they approached them. So they were there, they said, we're here. We had Terry Lundeen, who was like, come to our school, like put our flyers. Well, you know, they just kind of ironed out some things with, and it wasn't just Terry Lundeen, it was our federal grants person, Jen. Thank you. Jen Strong. Sorry, Jen Strong. I know your first name and I do know your last name, but it just flew away. Anyway, it was a really nice discussion about how we can make that program more involved and active. Nick Van Dyne came and discussed teammates. Not only that it's an opportunity for all kids, including Native kids, but that it would be wonderful to have some Native mentors in the teammates program. We got a presentation about the Wachipi that took place at General Beetle. They had enough food for 200 people and they had more than 400 people come through the door. It was amazing. It really sounds like it is growing, and it was a very nice community event that a lot of kids and families, not just from General Beetle, took part in. And there will be an end of year watch EP, and I think it's gonna be at Central. So that was determined, or maybe not, maybe they all knew, but I didn't. And that was basically it. It was a really nice meeting.
Any other reports? Moving on to others. Any other? Mrs. Clapham.
So really, this is all like backloaded from last.
Oh, that's
This is
right.
all like backdated.
That's right.
Quickly, I wanted to thank Pinedale and Blackhawk. I got to go to their Christmas programs and it was so much fun. It's one of my favorite parts of the year. When I got to Pinedale, they said, "You don't have a kid here?" And I said, "No, I do not. I just love all the Christmas cheer." And also to all of our schools who end up going to RCAA, I'm just so impressed with getting these really hyper Christmas kids all on the bus, all back to where they're supposed to be and wrangling all of them. They get it. It's a pretty impressive thing to be able to do with a school full of elementary school children. So bravo to them. I also want to say thank you to our administration. I know multiple ones of them went to Christmas programs. I ran into Dr. Strasser at Blackhawk, and I just appreciate our administration being out there and present at those events. Thank you to the principals at Central and East. I'm really impressed with our new principals. They are full of energy and very strong leaders, and it was really cool to get to chat with them and see how the year was going. So I appreciate them just being open to visiting and showing me what was happening. And I want to say thank you. Kelsey's on, but just a thank you to Kelsey. She is busy, but like streamlining our policies and taking the like 9 books we have and trying to get down less. I'm really appreciative of her, like keeping her eye on these old policies and updating things to current law. And it was a great board decision to hire in-house counsel, I think. So thanks to her for that. And thank you to our board members, administrators who are going to bingo nights and TED Talks and city PTA. And I know we are all busy, and the sacrifice of time is a great sacrifice. So I appreciate that. And I hope that everyone has wonderful, peaceful holidays.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I just wanted to share that I also have been, like, I went to TED Talks and I went to orchestra concerts and choir and kids programs, and I had a little moment earlier this month where I was just overwhelmed at the goodness, the good people that are in this district. And sometimes we get overwhelmed by the challenges that are presented to us that the district has as a whole. And I wanted to throw it out there that it's been a very moving month to see a lot of people working hard to make students' lives better. So appreciate that.
Okay, anything else? I just want to thank Krista and what's her department? Student Nutrition. I had the opportunity to serve Thanksgiving dinner at Central, and that was wonderful. I got nervous. I felt like, the Lucia Ball thing where she's trying to, that's assembly line and stuff's going everywhere. But I had a real good time. They put me to washing dishes. I was washing dishes. I was doing it all. But thank Krista and the nutrition department. They have people that have been working in that department 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. They're excited about what they're doing. And to the point, Kate, that you were saying, that it would be awesome because they need space. They need a place to be outside of the cramped working environment. So how wonderful to have a nutrition wing of a CTE building, that all that would be housed in a central location. You could have students working in it. I mean, it'd just be wonderful. So that's my new bond plan.
Stepping down from the
CT, yeah, I'm stepping down from the sports complex. Too much shrapnel from that one. So, but maybe feeding the little children will be more palatable. But I think that'd be an awesome program. So, yeah, and I could go eat and cook and wash dishes. So wonderful. Thank Krista and the nutrition. Any other? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for SDCL 1-25-2.1, discussing employee information. I'll entertain that motion. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We are now officially in executive session. No decisions or vote will be made during this time. Thank you, everyone. Oh, we had a motion and a second. Now we got to vote. All right, all in favor of going to executive session, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Any
Aye.
opposed?